G'day guys, Tillis20 here and welcome back to Springfield. Massive episode today. We're going to keep it all time-lapse as we build a massive chunk of Springfield. We are going to be building a parkland, and I'm going to call this whole area that we build Jebediah Springfield Park, which is one of the main parks in Springfield, so it makes sense for this to be such a massive sprawling parkland that we end up creating. But yeah, full time lapse, and I've deleted a lot of footage as well, just because I wanted to squeeze it all into this one episode, just so we can tick off this whole build and have it complete rather than just chipping away at it as we go. It's going to sit in this far corner over here of the city along the riverbank, and we end up building an amphitheater, the Jebediah Springfield Central Park area, I guess. We're going to be building botanical gardens, and then the Springfield Zoo, which makes a pretty big appearance in The Simpsons. Like, there are heaps of episodes where lots of things take place around the zoo, so it was pretty important to tick that off, and I'm pretty happy with the location. But a whole bunch of challenges in this episode, a lot of things that I still need your advice on, and just totally not smooth sailing at all. This was a bit of a challenge to build, a lot of hiccups along the way, so you'll see a bit of that as we get to them. But first, kicking it off, we are still working on the Springfield monorail. We will be doing a little bit more of this, not next episode, but the episode after. I'd like to somewhat finish it off, at least, depending if we end up taking a squid port or something like that. But we'll cross that path when we get there. But for the time being, I'm pretty sure we've got like another episode and 2 episodes worth of the monorail, just working on some of the stops. The funny thing is I actually thought I was going to build all the monorail and Jebediah Springfield Park in this episode. I've been playing this game for like 4 years now, and I still don't know how long things take. I just assume that they're going to take far shorter than they ever take. But yeah, totally was just not the case. But because this is such an entertainment precinct, I figured it would make the most amount of sense to have a monorail stop here. We're going to call this stop the Springfield Bowl, which is the amphitheater that I'm working on right now. This is an idea that I got from the Springfield wiki page, but as soon as I found it, I was like, oh yeah, I remember this from a couple of the episodes. And it actually appears in quite a few. I actually remember it only from 2, but there are actually quite a lot of episodes that take place here. Unfortunately, I was taking reference from probably a more recent episode of the Springfield Bowl, and also just this one reference picture. But a lot of the reference shots that I see from episodes are slightly different. There's not any seating. It's actually all like a grass field. So I guess this is one of those places that just changes as the show goes, which we're all discovering as we try to recreate this damn place. Who would have known that they would have changed so many of the locations all the time? I mean, serves me right for trying to build something that is a fictional place. But regardless, I do like the way that it sits in here. This is something that I've been wanting to build for quite a while. But yeah, it just sits in the little hillside here, and the monorail stops pretty close to it. So I'd imagine that you'd catch the monorail if there was going to be a special event here. But you'd also be able to catch this monorail if you're going to go to Jebediah Springfield Park. I'll also be putting a basketball arena around here too, which gets a fair amount of usage. Like, a lot of people come off at this stop when we actually have matches being played. So yeah, it ends up becoming a very busy stop, and that's what I really love about the monorail network that we are creating around Springfield. Is it's actually been really helpful for getting people around, and because we don't have a huge amount of other transport infrastructure, a lot of people are actually using it. And again, I did explain this last episode, but we are working in an alternate universe where the monorail lasts longer than the one did that was built in The Simpsons in Springfield. That one only lasted 1 lap. This one, I think the infrastructure for it is just a little bit more high budget. And something I stupidly forgot to mention last episode, that this monorail was made by Bisquigglehausen, aka Jay, who creates just, I reckon, some of the best looking transports on Cities Skylines. Trains, planes, and now monorails. He's really just an epic assets creator, and I didn't give him credit last week. So sorry, Jay. I'm so sorry. But I love this one. So thank you so much, Jay, for creating this. You can actually download this if you want to from the Steam Workshop. Do send me some screenshots if you do end up making this drive around your cities. I think that would be just yeah, I'd really love to see it in some different contexts. And I'd just like to extend, as I do in every episode, if you are ever interested in working on any of these sort of very niche types of assets for Cities Skylines, I would so greatly appreciate that, because I am limited to the assets that I currently have in the game and the assets that are being created by the wonderful people who are supporting the channel. So if you are interested in getting in touch and helping out, very much appreciated. Get in touch on my Discord or message me down below. So as you can see, my monorail line stretches pretty much on the outskirts of the park. This is actually going to fit in really well with that one part of that episode where the monorail passes by Jebediah Springfield Hut. And that's just one of those things that has just happened coincidentally. I didn't actually plan for it to happen like that, but now that we have Jebediah Springfield Park right here and the monorail goes right overhead, I mean, that just worked out pretty damn perfectly, didn't it? So I'll have to make sure I include that. But I actually would like to do a whole episode where we just focus on the monorail and the destructive path of the anchor that ends up coming down. The W, I should probably say instead. But yeah, I plan to do a whole episode on that. But it won't be next episode. I've already got that one sort of figured out what I want to do. Alright, now we're sort of working on the actual Jebediah Springfield Park. Not a huge amount of reference shots for this one, unfortunately. So, well, fortunately, unfortunately, however you want to look at it. It means that I have a bit more creative freedom. I'm not really stuck on any particular photos, but I do know there are a few things that happen in this park that I'll get to very shortly. But one thing that I do remember from a lot of episodes is that baseball seems to make a very big appearance in the show, and I figured we should probably put some baseball pictures around here. Correction, baseball fields, which I've been corrected many a times before. There is one scene that I remember from The Simpsons when Homer hits a home run and it hits some guy having a picnic. So I ended up making that hill that guy was having that picnic on. You can't really tell that there's a hill there, but just know there's a little hill and a little space where that guy would have been knocked out. You know, I just do little touches like that. You might not notice everything that I do, but trust me guys, I'm going in there. Like these episodes are just taking so long to make because I am just getting so hung up on getting all the fine details in there. It's just a little bit ridiculous. So I do hope you are appreciating the little fine details that I'm just adding in, whether you notice them or not. And if you guys see me build somewhere and do you think, oh, you should totally get that, please just like hit me up in the comments below. Like I read all your comments, even when I get ridiculous amounts. I do. That's like one of my favorite things to do. I upload videos at 11 o'clock at night, which I'm usually awake for, but if I'm not, one of the most favorite things to do is waking up and just reading all the comments that you guys leave me. So I just created one of my favorite references from this episode. Can you tell what episode it's from or what it's from? Just have a little guess, because I'm about to tell you. Alright, I'm not going to tell you, but it's from this clip. So yeah, I mean, like lots of very like niche references like that I don't think everyone's going to remember, especially if you're like a part-time watcher of The Simpsons. You might be like, why is that gazebo collapse? That doesn't make any sense. Well, there's a reason behind my madness. There's reasons, trust me. But yeah, did you get that? I don't know if you did. Let me know if you did down below, if you recognize that as soon as I started building it. That was something that came to me as I was building this episode. I actually completely forgot about that. It wasn't something that I went into this remembering. I just was like, hey, gazebo. I remember something that happened with a gazebo. Building something now. We just built a basketball arena. Not a huge amount happens with basketball, but there's a couple of episodes where they do go and see basketball matches. So I figured we probably do need an arena. Plus, this is also one of my favorites looking buildings from the campus DLC that I figured we should probably do that. Probably should add something like that. Also, just from like a design perspective, when you are creating cities in Cities Skylines, it's really important to make sure that you're using larger buildings as well as these smaller ones. Something that's happening right now in Springfield is that I'm probably using too many small buildings, and there's going to be an episode, probably when we do the downtown, but there's going to be an episode where I go through and just delete whole blocks of grid and turn them into some of the more larger buildings that you'd expect. And I think that's going to change a lot of the way that this city looks, because at the moment I feel like we have too many small buildings because, I mean, the series is still pretty young and we've been mostly working on those types of builds. Whereas I'm kind of getting excited to start working around the downtown and just adding in some bigger, larger buildings, and I just think it's going to make the whole place look a little bit more realistic. So this area, it's a bit of a mix of parkland and just a touch of industry. I don't know why I decided to put a bit of industry around here. Maybe it's because the train line goes right past here, I'm not really sure, but I thought this might be a bit of a spot where a little bit of industry was. But then surrounding that industry, we have all this parkland, and I'm, again, calling this whole land over here, Jebediah Springfield Park. But then amongst Jebediah Springfield Park, you just go to these other little areas. And one of those areas is the Springfield Botanical Gardens, which is something that, as far as I know, only really gets referenced once. And this is where Selma and Troy McClure get married. And I will build their ceremony setup in just a little bit, but first wanted to build the Botanical Gardens. Look, not a huge amount of references. Again, like I had to just sort of vibe it off some pictures that I found on the internet. Again, like a real mix of videos and like video references and then picture references. So yeah, it can sometimes be a bit tricky to like piece together what everything looks like. This is one of those challenges where I had a bit of an idea, but had to go a little bit rogue as well. But one thing that I did notice was there is this Springfield Botanical Garden sign. It's very random. It's a very random looking sign, but end up creating it pretty decently. But yeah, it's pretty strange. I don't really get it. But I also have to give more credits to the Simpsons wiki page. This is again a fan-made page that is just fully decked out with information. And the Simpsons, the Springfield Botanical Gardens was a location that I just didn't really know anything about. I actually didn't know it existed until I was just scrolling through. What I do is I go onto the map that's on there and I just have a look at the different locations. Then I go, oh yeah, that's there, that should be there. And then I might Google it, I might YouTube some clips of what that location looks like. And that's generally how I'm piecing together a lot of my information. But that map is just a real source of some really great ideas. And I'm somewhat staying truthful to how some things are sort of like positioned and connect up. But you know, again, this is still my very own recreation of it. But yeah, I highly suggest you go and check out that map. It's really quite cool. I'll leave a link to it in the description. But we've got this really great greenhouse in the center here. This is made by Mr. Mason. He doesn't make a huge amount of buildings. It's mostly trees, which I'm placing under just a huge amount of Mr. Mason trees. But yeah, this greenhouse, man, it is just a very, very pretty looking greenhouse. And it just really fits the piece just in the center here. Something else that's really cool about all these areas that I'm building is I'm making sure that there's only one entrance going in. So you can see them, like people are walking around and visiting and paying money to come to visit the botanical gardens. And yeah, we end up making a little bit of money from it. It's just nice knowing that they're getting a rating and you have to try and make it appealing for guests, which I think it's doing pretty well, considering quite a lot of people end up coming into this area. But now we're starting to work on the ceremony for Selma and Troy McClure. Just it's pretty simple, just a couple of deck chairs and end up putting like a little stage. But yeah, it's not too special, but it's just nice knowing that it's there, that they got married there, and yeah, it's the reference, all the pieces to the puzzle are right there. I'm really keen to make Troy McClure's house that's on the side of the cliff, but I'm saving that until we work on can't remember the name of the place where all the celebrities live in Springfield. You guys might be able to help me with that. But I've already figured out where that's going to go. That's pretty much underneath the Springfield sign, if you can figure out where that is within my version. Alright, now we are starting to work on the zoo. This is one of those things that I just thought I could finish off in an afternoon. But it almost took me a whole day just to make the zoo. So yeah, a lot of time goes into these projects. A lot of time. But no regrets. It took so long because I ended up adding in just 2 really nice references that I'll work on very shortly. But I actually think the most amount of time went to making the zoo sign, and I got very particular about how it looked, and I wasn't going to accept anything less, and I'm going to work on it. I'm actually working on it right now. But the Springfield Zoo. So let me just quickly talk about this. The location for this zoo changes so much, and the entrance itself is different. Feels like every single episode I watch, it's a different sign. So I chose one sign, one entrance. That's the one that I was going to do. The reason why this place changes so often, first of all, the Springfield Zoo is in Springfield, and they call it the Springfield City Zoo. And there's one episode where it's super close to the town center, and all the animals escape, and it's very clear that it's close to the town center, which mine is not. And then there is another episode where Flanders is chased out of Springfield by some teens, and he ends up seeking refuge in the zoo, but he's very clearly out of Springfield, but it's very clearly it's still the same sign. It's still Springfield Zoo. So where the hell is this place? It's one of those things where I just have no idea where the hell it is. So my version of Springfield Zoo is between both those locations. It's not near the center, it's not out of the city, it's just in the city somewhere. And I think this is probably the most realistic location for a zoo. Even the map that the one that I've made reference to before, the fan-made map, they place it within Jebediah Springfield Park, and that is pretty far out of the city. So my version is closer to the city than that. But yeah, that's just the way I'm going to do it, and I figured it makes more sense to be within the city rather than completely out of it, and I don't think it should be as close to the town center as some of the other episodes make it out to be. And I'm also choosing this sign to go off rather than calling it Springfield Zoo or City Zoo or whatever they called it. Actually, no, mine's called City Zoo. I take that back. This is the version I decided to go. This sign took so long to make, and I had to use procedural objects quite a lot to just select the right letters from this department store sign that I found. And then I just had to isolate some of the letters that were able to be used because some of them weren't. I had to modify the T into a Y, and the Z is just an N that's I've flipped over and just squished it down a little bit. Took a while, but it got there in the end. It's not like 100% perfect. It's sort of similar to the sign that I took reference from. Slightly different though, but that's as good as it's gonna get. It would be so much easier. It probably would have been quicker if I just made a custom sign, like learnt how to make a custom sign, followed all the City Walk, City Walls tutorials, learnt how to use Blender, and probably could have just made it much easier, or I could have just asked an asset creator, but I don't know. I just decided to use procedural objects, and once you get into the groove of it, you just sort of sink into this, tunnel vision, gonna get this done, and I'm quite happy with how it turned out in the end. But yeah, in terms of the actual zoo itself, I really just wanted to get those main areas that you'll see me work on very shortly, the 2 references that I can remember from any episodes. I really wanted those 2 parts of the zoo done really nicely, but the rest of the habitats, like, I wasn't hugely concerned about how they looked. So this is like a very rushed zoo. If you want to see me build a proper zoo, go and check out the one that I built with Marble Mountain. I go to a lot of detail for that one. This one is not as up to speed with that, so you will see quite a few imperfections. The easiest way of creating the zoo I found was to place all the habitats around and then just connect them up with paths. I'm actually using invisible paths and this ploppable surface instead of using just the paths that just the vanilla paths. I did that because I was able to make them much wider, and I really wanted all my paths to be a little bit wider than they would be typically seen in if I was going to just connect them up with the paths that the game gives you. So yeah, these are really wide paths, and I'll end up putting quite a lot of trees around here, so this place really comes alive when you put down the trees. Another area that took a lot of time to figure out and problem solve, and I'm not showing you any of the footage, but I will talk about this, was the entrance. I really wanted people to be going into one entrance, the main entrance of the park, and paying admission fee and exiting from there. And that was a challenge because the main entrance is on a parking lot, and the parking lots don't technically connect up to a road, which means that people don't actually walk through that entrance. So I had to download a invisible entrance that I hide underneath my entrance, and I have to also had an invisible road that goes underneath there. I also was like, oh, okay, look, I guess they could enter in through another location and we could just pretend that they're entering through that main entrance, but my stupid brain just would not allow that. They had to walk through the main entrance. I couldn't allow it any other way. But it got there in the end, so you see a lot of people coming in, which is really fun because the one that I built in Marble Mountain, I had a lot of trouble with the same thing. Like I tried the same method, and that was really tricky. And I still have problems with that. There's still, for some reason, I'll drop dramatically in people visiting the zoo. Whereas this one, there was like a steady amount of people actually coming here, which is great because it's really nice knowing that we're getting that good reputation for the zoo, it's making money, and it's also increasing the land value and all those great things that it does for the city around here. Alright, we're down to our first reference. This is Pandemonium from the episode where Homer is doing all those jobs for Mr. Burns, and he somehow gets himself into a panda suit. And then I'm not going to repeat what happens after that. I'm sure if you've seen the episode, you'll know what happens. But yeah, Pandemonium. Pretty much just making some pandas down here. A little bit of a rocky background, using some grey flame rocks. Some of the best rocks. The best rocks you can find on the Steam Workshop, in my opinion. And then yeah, just the Pandemonium sign, which is on this metal scaffolding, I guess. Filling in some gaps, trees, some open area, because I realized that quite a lot of parks quite a lot of zoos just have areas where you can buy food and have a picnic and have open space. Probably need to have more enclosures for this to be a bit more of a realistic and better functioning zoo, but whatever. I just used all the enclosures that I had access to. But it's done quickly, and I like that process because it's fast and you just have to try and get the concepts in, and once the timer goes, that's it. That's all the time you get, and it's sort of fun. It's a fun process. But I would like to invite you guys, if you are interested in letting me know of any other references we could put into the zoo. A lot does happen here, so it'd be nice to get more references if I have missed them, which I'm sure I have. But to finish off the episode, we're just going to end with one of my favorite episodes, or at least one of my favorite scenes from an episode, is when Flanders runs away from those teens, finds himself within the baboon habitat in a tire, which I will end up adding. Reverend Lovejoy saves the day, saves him on a train. I couldn't add the train, but I was able to add the train line that comes above. Mine's a little bit different. I know you're probably hearing a little bit of a common theme with my words. Yeah, mine is just always a little bit different, but I'm sure you can piece together the things that I didn't add or how mine is different. And maybe this is a little bit more realistic in some way. I don't know. I've never seen anything like this at a zoo, so I don't know how realistic this is. But it's there. You will see it in more detail in the cinematics, which right now, they're upon us. Thank you all so much for watching. Very, very much appreciated. Next week, we are going to be building something a little bit different. We're going to be building one of the most iconic areas within Springfield. Can you guess it? Well, I'm not going to tell you. You're just going to have to wait. But yeah, it should be loads of fun. Before I go, guys, I do want to give a special shout out to some of the beloved people supporting me on Patreon. Aaron Ham, Keenan Coig, Maestri Investment Group, LTD, Gary Gallagher, Liwei Lu, and Tess Ho. I know I just said thank you to my patrons, but I do want to say sorry to my patrons for butchering your names once again at the end of an episode. Thank you all so much for watching. It's very much appreciated, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.